So I guess we can go ahead and start. Connor, are you a part of the group that's going to start talking about this?
Yes, ma'am. If you'd like me to go ahead and start sharing my screen, we can open up with a slide. I've got a site plan to share as far as concept goes, and we're trying to kind of fly through the introductory stuff and then open it up for questions so that we make this thing conversational. So, would you like me to go ahead and
That
share?
that sounds good. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. If you will introduce your team, if you have anybody else with you, and please make sure that somebody is assigned to look at the chat room because a lot of people will put questions there as you all were talking.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
All right. So thank you, Ms. Rosie. I forgot to always thank Ms. Rosie for setting this up. And I'm going to turn it over to you all now.
All right. Well, my name's Connor Gilbert. I'm the civil engineering manager for this proposal. And Christian Ashley, who is also on the call, she may be having voice issues. I'm getting a text from her right now, but we'll be presenting today. Like Miss Antoinette said, this is the 13302 Old Hickory Boulevard rezone that we're discussing today. Everybody can see my screen, right? Y'all aren't having any issues?
Can anyone hear me?
There she
Yep, we
is.
can hear you and we can see the screen.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And that was Christian Ashley that was talking there.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to get my camera to work, but it's not wanting to. I keep clicking. My apologies, but I'm here. Go ahead, Connor.
Sure. And how we kind of want to stage this up today is really just a project introduction, show off the site concept, kind of identify what the targets are for this rezone proposal, and then really just open it up for statement or for question and answer rather. So this project is located over in kind of the Cane Ridge area, right off of Old Hickory. It's about a quarter mile from Burkett Road to the west. Address, of course, 13302 Old Hickory Boulevard. This falls within the Tier 3 Suburban Neighborhood Evolving Community Character Policy, which supports kind of suburban development, right? Light multifamily, some smaller subdivisions of like 10,000 square foot at the smallest lots. It's about 6.5 acre property, and we're going for RM not supporting, RM9 not supporting. That means that there's short-term rentals not allowed, and we're targeting about 56 units for townhomes. You can see down at the bottom right hand of the screen that concept just overlaid over an aerial to give you a better idea of where it's located. It's actually just to the east of the firewood company that runs off of Old Hickory Boulevard. Christian, Ashley, would you like to kind of go over some of the actual unit description stuff, and then I'll hop into
sure.
the site plan?
Yeah. Well, first, let me say good evening to everyone because I didn't get to formally introduce myself. So first off, thank you so much for allowing us into this space tonight. And my name is Christian Ashley, and I am a part of the development outreach team for this project. And I want everyone to know that our goal is to build, but not just homes, but community forward, purposeful spaces that reflects the voice of the neighborhood. So when it comes down to why we're here, and the development vision, our proposed development will consist of ADA compliant 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhome designs to offer dignity, beauty, and affordability. So we're looking at price points in the possibly 275 to 350,000 price range, and we're prioritizing high quality material, possibly brick and hardy board. The designs that blend in with the natural character of the area. We didn't want to change up the area. We're also implementing HOA to maintain that high level upkeep because we want to make sure that we maintain the beauty in the area. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. So we're basically here because we believe in collaborative growth And over the past few months, we've spoken to a couple of the community members and things of that nature. And we're hoping that we can get a little feedback this evening. But when it comes down to the project itself, that is basically what I have when it comes down to discussing the plans about what we're building. We don't have anything specifically just yet because, of course, we got to get the community's input first.
Cool. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to a site concept so that we can look over some of the features that, like Christian Ashley mentioned. Can y'all see the site plan here?
Yes.
So once again, I mean, kind of the same layout as what you saw on that aerial on the previous slide. As of right now, we've got, like I said, 56 units. That sits at the bottom end of density allowed for this community character policy. I've also provided kind of some photos in real, in space that you can understand where the property kind of, or the building footprints start to really fall into place. There's a great front yard area that we're really trying to hone in on what this space could be used for. I've thrown some ideas on here, of course, some landscaping to cover up and soften the building facade and that footprint, visible footprint from the road. We've got plenty of space for turnaround, kind of communal space is what we're really thinking about. Maybe some playground area, mailboxes, and of course turnaround for any kind of delivery and mail services. One of the ideas that's been thrown around for this area also is, and this is highly subject to the school board and planning staff, is a dedicated school bus pickup area that would pull it off, pull that pick up and drop off the main road, Old Hickory. Just a thought, we've got plenty of space to build up front, and we're hitting our density goals in the rear of the property. Stormwater management at the back. We do have a creek back here that we'll buffer off of, maintain good vegetation, and put all of our stormwater management devices back there. That's where the grade falls off towards the rear of the property. Some other ideas that we've tossed around are, and this is highly subject to NDOT review and opinion approval, is the introduction of a dedicated turn lane. We understand that this road can get backed up. It's been identified as somewhat hazardous around that bend, and the thought process behind putting that turn lane there is to pull traffic off of the road as they're entering the property. Some other information about on the topic of traffic and vehicles on the road. We have pulled the Institute of Transportation Engineers expected trip generations for this level of development. There were 34 studies of similar density that we were pulling from, and it's looking to be about 26 to 30 additional trips. That would be, let's see, 36 total. Okay, so these are for the peak hours, excuse me. It's looking to be about 7 trips in, 8 to 9 in the morning, with 19 trips out, from 8 to 9 in the morning. These are for the peak hours, of course. This doesn't necessarily quantify hours throughout the day, but rather when the most vehicles will be entering and exiting the road. And I mean, going into the details here, it's ultimately going to be about 30 vehicles in and out for each of the peak hours, which that once again is 8 to 9 and then 5 to 6 in the evening. But yeah, I mean, this ultimately just kind of gives you a little bit of a look of what we're trying to do. Big front yard. That's really what we're trying to highlight on today. Get some thoughts on additional landscaping, what y'all think would be a good idea for that frontage, just to kind of beautify the area. And I can pull this site concept back up in the Q&A phase so that we can get into more details on it. Christian Ashley, would you like to make some comments on some closing statements, and then I'll follow you up?
Yes. So, like Connor was saying, we've heard from residents across the area and even a mile or two down the road who have felt a little, have put in their voice. And we really just want to know, like, with the land and the opportunity to shape what comes next, we want the community's opinion. And we want you guys to understand that your feedback is very important to us. And we want to know what you would love to see in your neighborhood: sidewalks, community mail kiosks, the Greenway Trail connecting to natural areas in the back. These are all open for discussion. We're here to listen and align. So there isn't a one-sided plan, it's a shared vision. So please share your questions and ideas. The more you engage with us, the more we can reflect your needs in what we build and in how the future development happens in this area.
Right. Yeah. And just to kind of reinforce that, a lot of this is heavily conceptual. I mean, we have an idea of what we want from a density standpoint, but building renderings, landscaping. Another thing that I would also, might as well just go ahead and pull it up now. One of the things that we kind of tossed around is with having that creek at the rear and maintaining transitional buffer yards on the side properties, maintaining existing vegetation and improvements where applicable. Would there be an opportunity to provide some kind of walking path or greenway that could run down around some of our planted stormwater management, the creek? That I think these are some good ideas to really involve the community with not only the neighborhood but the area, right? I think this property could be something nice for everyone.
Yeah,
But
and we've been listening to everything that the community has given us for those who have reached out to us. And over the past couple weeks, several local residents have reached out, some interested in learning how to even build wealth on their own land, others curious about what we're proposing here. So again, I want everyone to understand that this meeting is about transparency and feedback, and we really do want everyone's thoughts. And we want to make sure what's being developed doesn't disrupt your lifestyles, but complements and enhances it. So like we said, we are proposing a lot of different things, but collaboration with the community is our prior goal, as our main goal, because we also want to make it clear this isn't our project. This is something we want to, co-create with the community. So before we wrap it up, I would like to leave you guys with this. Like I said, we're not here to build over the community. We're here to build with it. This is about creating homes that your children can afford, where your parents can downsize, where your family legacies can thrive on. Because what we've noticed in the area is that there are a lot of dilapidated homes, and then there are some older homeowners that can't no longer take care of their properties. So this will also allow individuals to stay in that area, you know what I'm saying, and to be close to family and be close to their doctors and in close proximities to a lot of things that a lot of people are used to from just being in that area. So if this community, if I want your voices to be heard, that's what matters most. So thank you again for your time tonight. And I'm ready to hear anyone's input, and genuinely Shape comes next. I'm sorry you guys can't see my face with me talking. I'm really trying to get the video to work, so I'm sorry.
Well, we want to thank you all so very much. I just want everyone to know that I did do a walkthrough, and we had talked about some of the different things here, and they had talked about and heard some of your different wishes in other communities. That's why they're bringing a lot of this to you in this way. And it was very important that they keep things open to be able to take what you're going to say and to put it in place. So we're going to open it now. And so anybody who has any comments, if you feel better putting it in the chat room, you can do that, or you can just go ahead, break in, and let's hear your input, what you suggest, or what you'd like to see changed, or even if it's something brand new that you would like to see that, because they have been open to listen to that. So go ahead, please.
And then just real quick, I'm sorry, Christian Ashley, would you mind monitoring the chat, because I'm kind of working with a few different things on my screen. Sorry for interrupting.
Absolutely on it.
I apologize. I was having difficulty getting in right at the beginning. If you could go back to the main plan and just
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then Miss Elizabeth was waiting to say something.
Okay, sorry. And how many units again, and what kind? please?
It's 56 units, townhomes. Our client is targeting 2 bedroom, 2.5, 2 bath, somewhere in that market. It is at an 8.8 unit density per acre. And the target zoning would support 9 units per acre. Something I would like to reinforce is that, and I didn't mention this in the beginning, is that we were originally targeting an RM20, and that did, we had a massive building footprint. We honestly took a look at it and didn't think that that was something that was well meshed. And I think from a contextual standpoint, you can see even on this aerial how far back the homes sit. Bumping that down to the RM9, which is the lowest end of what's supported for rezone in this community character policy, allowed for us to really pull everything back, create a big front yard, and give us more room for, like I said, communal spaces, landscaping, circulation. I think it's honestly just a better product at this density.
And how many acres is the entire property, please?
Just under 6.5.
6.5.
I think it's 6.3 exact.
Okay.
Miss Elizabeth, were you ready with your question or your comment? And I think you're still on mute, dear. You're still on mute.
Yes, where exactly is this property located? The address doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can run this back. So that gives you an idea there. October Woods, if you're familiar with that subdivision, is just across the creek from us. It's at the intersection of Burkett and Old Hickory.
Okay.
It's about a quarter mile to the west.
Okay. Thank you.
It's kind of across the street from that, what is that church, that school?
Lighthouse?
Yes.
And if you're familiar with the, I don't think it's a lumber yard, but they sell wood-fired firewood, right? That's
Yes.
the neighbor. And that is kind of an idea behind some of the transitional buffer yards, heavy landscaping to kind of protect the perimeter, and soften that change in building. It's not really a change of building aesthetic, but building type. That's the idea with those landscape buffer yards. And I think once we get into more refined phase with planning, I would like to discuss opportunities for some sort of walking path that runs down to the creek. I think that integrated with maybe some fencing, some nice trees, would be a good selling point for the development itself as well. If it can be dedicated as a greenway, then that becomes a walking path for the entire neighborhood. I know that there's not sidewalks along Old Hickory Boulevard, but it could still be utilized. And, maybe in the future, if planning or NDOT's policy changes for this area and sidewalks come in, road gets widened, you've got a connection point.
Have you had any discussion with October Woods or Apple Valley to connect to them?
Not at this point.
As far as a walking path, I think that would be really a great addition to connect.
That would be great. That's great insight. We will just have to see from the engineering standpoint how that could even be created. But I wrote that idea down because any way we can make a safer walking area, that sounds amazing. Thank you, Miss Elizabeth.
I have a few questions.
Sure, would it be helpful to have the site plan up?
Steve, would you need the site plan up?
Yeah.
He said, yeah.
What's the average square foot of the 56 units?
As far as footprint goes, I know that right now we're looking at a 45 by 16, I believe, which puts us at now the actual like HVAC space. Like if we're talking about building space, we haven't done full architectural plans yet, so that's hard to say. But it's 720 square foot footprint, right? That doesn't account for multi-story and interior space.
Yeah, that's 720 square feet is would be about right. I saw the total building was 40,000 square feet of building
Yeah, we do have
space.
some information over here on this table that would
Those are
highlight that, right?
pretty small units.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd like to see a lot fewer houses and, you know, twice that size. You know, we're zoned right now, you could put like 3 houses on there. And so, you know, double that would be 4 times that much would be 12 houses. You know, that seems more reasonable to me. That corner is really dangerous. It's not a corner, there's 2 bends in the road there. There's wrecks every year. If anybody knows where Aunt Louise's old country store used to be there, it's been torn down for years now. There's a telephone pole just to the west of that corner where Battle Road runs into Old Hickory Boulevard. And, you know, there's always wrecks there every year, people hitting that pole. With that many people in there getting in, and, you know, traffic backs up during rush hour all the way to the proposed driveway there. It would be really hard to get in and out with that many cars. I mean, there'd be a bottleneck. They'd be waiting on each other to get out of there. But,
Yeah,
you know, the neighborhood in general, you know, we all moved out here for the rustic area. And so I just feel like allowing, you know, say 4 times what is currently allowed, you know, would be a generous expansion. It'd be substantial expansion. And, or, you know, even 5 times. And how the economics of that works out, I don't know, but
So, Mr. Steve, absolutely. So that was one of the first things our team took into account is safety because of that area right there. In fact, we deliberately pulled the development significantly back from the road, as Connor was saying. We brought it down from the size of units that the initial bill was going to be. And then we were like, hey, this doesn't make sense. See, I live off of Main Road as well. So we were like, this doesn't make sense. And we need to pull it back off the road, specifically to reduce any sense of crowding or danger for both residents and drivers. And unfortunately, people have to put their phones down, be a little bit more patient on the roads nowadays and things of that nature and paying attention. But we're also committed to not contributing additional traffic burden beyond what this area would naturally already accommodate over time. So that is why Connor did the high peak hours to see how many cars and flows of traffic would actually make a difference in those units being there, and it'd be 1 car or 2 car per the unit. So the number of homes is low density, which means that it's not high rise or mass units. So that means that we're meeting the traffic impact, my tongue is getting tied up, meaning traffic impact will be minimal. We're exploring the potential of adding, like you see right there at the bottom, the turnaround lane, depending on TDOT input and traffic studies. And this is for the bus for school children to be safe. This is for the mailman to be safe, for whoever's doing deliveries to be safe. This is also for any accidents that may happen will not even impede on the property also. So we're keeping lives safe as well. So yeah, we've made sure emergency vehicles, daily traffic flow are a part of our planning and design from the beginning when we first talked to everyone. So we recognize this road is already fast moving, and that's exactly why we've designed with buffers, green space, and possible sidewalk enhancements in mind to encourage calm, walkable environment areas, as well as that traffic that's there. So we're not just thinking about building here, we're thinking about living here. So it's a difference when we're trying to prioritize safety, but for both, the residents and everyone else in the neighborhood already calling it home.
Well, that's good. Having that room there will help quite a bit.
Right.
But my main objection still is just the density. It's just, I see it as really high density for this area, because there's a lot of other developments going on as well.
That's correct. And there are a lot of, including this homeowner that's lived here for quite some time. They're trying to do other things and move into other areas, but there are other individuals in this area as well that don't want to bring in and impact a lot of traffic, but they're also wanting to develop their land for their families as well, to be able to have later on also.
Well, yeah, I understand. I'm just speaking for myself and my desire to preserve as much rural characteristics in the area as possible. I have 13 acres, and it's one property away from, well, depending on which side you look, it's either one or two properties away from this development. But I'm on Battle Road is my driveway.
Miss Pat, I think I saw your hand up.
My question was, did pulling it back from the road, the housing units, did that reduce the number of housing units? Because just pulling it back from the road doesn't really decrease the number of cars coming from the subdivision.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes, it did.
Go ahead, Connor.
Yeah. So our original proposal was for RM20, which was the high end of what's supported by the community character policy, which is kind of planning's future growth plan for every neighborhood. And RM20 by all means is the highest density that was allowed. And it was more of a conceptual, just like, hey, how many can we fit? There was some discussion with ourselves, Miss Lee, and Cane Ridge Community Club. We went to the Planning Commission back in March, I believe, and spoke with some of the community members that showed up outside of the meeting hall. And taking things into account, we went back to planning and ultimately arrived at the lower end density, which allowed us the space. If you can see my mouse, this central drive aisle, where the extra added density was down this drive aisle, and I think we maintained a setback of somewhere in the range of 40 to 50 feet, which met the building setback for this zoning. But once again, it didn't make sense to have that many units. I think we originally had like 90 some odd units proposed. It was under the actual RM20 zoning, but didn't RM15. So that's where the density loss was largely in the front. And I believe that we originally had units that were proposed on this rear parking drive aisle.
Yeah, so when we first did this, we was trying to fit properties on the whole piece of property, right? And then once that was done, we sat there and was like, hey guys, this does not make sense. This doesn't make sense for the surrounding area. This doesn't make sense for the future tenants that will choose to live here. It makes more sense chopping them down. And Ms. Pat, understand that the amount of units that Connor is discussing right now, the 52, we absolutely don't even know if it's going to be 52. And the reason why is because we can't purchase plans and move it further until we have an understanding of where the community sees it, as well as where we are trying to also develop it. So even though he's saying 52, it may not even be 52. It may be 42. It may be 37. It just depends on the floor plan, because like he said, we haven't secured floor plans because we need to make sure that we even have an idea of what we're putting on there. And that means, well, what are we going to put on there? Yeah, we're putting townhouses on there, but if it's more like how Steve said, he feels as though he's not against it. He's just like, residential would kind of be better. Well, if that's the case, that's not a bad idea at all, right? It's just like, well, maybe we can make a couple more flatter units on the end. You understand what I'm saying? And if we decide to do that floor plan, well, that's going to take away from 52 units. Now it may be 20 to 22 units. You understand what I'm saying? Because we're trying to make sure that we're trying to make sure that we are collaborating and making these purposeful, not just throwing up buildings to collect money. We're not those type of developers.
Yeah, and I see Patricia. I just wanted to add one more thing to Christian Ashley's point. This is ultimately the peak density of what would be allowed under that zoning. This is a significant increase in impervious area, and for us to be able to manage the stormwater to Nashville Metro codes, which would mean maintaining peak flows and floods off of this property as it is now with all the trees and grass area, we're going to need some significant stormwater management at the rear. And that could also be a driving factor for how many units we wind up getting. So once again, this is a conceptual kind of peak density for this zoning allowed. We're ultimately going to have to use sound engineering practices as well to support the development and make sure that it maintains existing flood patterns, maintains erosion, earthwork allowances, things of that nature. But go ahead, Patricia, sorry.
Okay, I appreciate what you just said, and I really like the way that you keep reducing the number of units. I like the 22, and if you could go even lower, that would be good. And also, I noticed it looks like, except for the very, I guess the northern side, every unit just has one parking space. That was interesting to me. Is that correct?
It looks like 2 each. I know that that's a little vague here. It's about an average of 2 each. We've got 10 allocated to this 5-unit
Okay.
slot, 10 to this, 11, 11, 9, 9. These are all 5 units. It's around an average of 2 per. And then we've got extra spaces at the rear that, could accommodate guest parking. We intend to add striping, full sidewalk connectivity. There shouldn't be too much issue with being able to park it.
Okay, and also, when will you know how many units? Because we as a community would like that figure before we feel comfortable with it. Does that mean that we have to wait for more meetings later?
So that is where things get a little tricky, I'll admit. In order for us to determine the actual amount of units, of course, getting architect involved, right? Floor plans, and of course, the marketing side of it. Is it economically feasible to develop massive homes that are out of price range, right? That's where you kind of have this juggling act. And for me as an engineer, I've got to go through the grading, the stormwater management, do all of these things to analyze, like I said, metro codes, make sure that we're not increasing the runoff from this property, from its existing state. We've got a stream in the back. We've got to make sure that we don't flood that. That's ultimately the driving factor. As of right now, this is the most dense you will get. And as we go through that engineering, through the architectural phase, through, further development economics, right? That those are going to be the leading factors to what the ultimate density would be. So it's not going up from here, I guess is the best way to put that.
So we would have another meeting with our council lady, when you figure that out?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite answer the question there.
Yes.
That usually falls after rezone. So just to give you an idea, it would take me hundreds of hours to develop that type of plan, and that's a high upfront cost, right? So for me to do all the engineering on the front end before we even know it's a feasible rezone, that's where the dilemma is.
So
what they're looking at is, I don't usually okay a rezone until they have more specifics about what they're going to see, and so that we'll know what's going to go there. If we have to put some restrictions on some different things or make sure that some things are included in there, we want all of that done before I sign off to even take it to the council. So that's what they're used to, and that's what they're asking about. If there'll be anything else to bring forth so that they can see more specifics, since you all are taking their suggestions now, and what you're going to build in here to make things look different.
Yeah, so what I can do is, the only thing that we can do is give examples of what can be built. And like Connor says, we know we can't go over 52 homes, but we also know that we can't get with an architect or have them draft up plans or blueprints until we have an approval from you all letting us know that this is a go. And I definitely can give some ideas, but it would just be based off on, like he said, this is all just concepts right now. So we're just putting a whole bunch of different ideas together, though they are not just concepts, they're actually accurate numbers and things. But to give you a floor plan specifically, we don't know that yet. To give you the
Yeah,
architect to
I don't
draft stuff,
think
we wouldn't know that until after the fact.
Yeah, I think I agree with Patricia that the community is not so interested in the floor plan as the how many units we're talking about, and we feel like it's too many.
No. So what I'm saying with the floor plan and why it's important, and what that has everything to do with the amount of units. And so
Right,
we
I'm
may
not saying
say,
it's not important, but I mean the number of units is like what the community wants to know. And
right. So I'm saying, like, let's say we do townhomes and like there's 4 or 5 that are all flat. You know what I'm saying? Now you have in units that are flat and then the middles are tall. Do you understand what I'm saying? You may have a ranch style property on the in units where it's just you don't have no stairs in it.
Mhm.
And then the middle units can go upstairs. You're walking
Are
with
you
me?
saying that, are you all saying that you don't have any control over that part until it's built? But you all can say now that you can do that. That could be part of the plan, correct? Then we'll know how
Correct.
many. Okay. So that may be what we're talking about. Just go ahead and look and see how we can do that now so that we can get those smaller numbers, or that 22, so that we'll know, and that'll be part of it when we say either okay or no.
Right. But unfortunately, I'm trying to get, how can I word this? Connor, can you help?
Yeah, certainly. To kind of bring all of this together, there are quite a few factors that contribute to, all right, so RM9 is what we're going for. It would allow 6.3 times 9. That adds up to a total of 56 units, 57 units. That's right where we're at, right? That's just based off of zoning. Zoning would allow that many units. Well, there's engineering factors, there's architectural factors and there's economic factors that go into what's ultimately going to be built. The problem that I guess the disconnect is that in order for us to determine all of those factors and actually what this lot can truly support from a density standpoint, is that you're going to have to spend a boatload of money on the front end and ultimately not knowing if the rezone will pass. Right. So it's kind of like chicken before the egg situation. There's some level of engineering that I can do on the front end from a short and sweet kind of description that would tell us, hey, a pond's going to have to be this big, or to be able to support all of this development, which may file down a couple units, but ultimately, like I said, it'd take me hundreds of hours to develop full construction documents to give a final number. So what we're trying to portray is that this is the peak that would be allowed. It's likely going to shave off, I don't know, maybe a row of one of these units, 7 units, to be able to support the highest density that this property, or the highest density this property would be able to support, is what I'm trying to say.
So
I
let me
think
ask
that's
you
what
this.
Christian Ashley's concern is that in order for us to do all that engineering on the front end, there'd be a lot of sunken costs put into something that we don't know would be approved, right? And there could be this word of mouth or this exchange or verbal agreement that, hey, we'll approve it, but ultimately that goes down through planning commission, city council, public opinion.
It
It's
really just goes down to council. So let me ask you this then, because you're looking for the most density that will support. If you go ahead and knock it down now, I think 22 was the number that was thrown down. You know that it'll support that, so you don't have to do all of the specific drawings and all of that. You can just gauge that we're doing this for that. And then if we approve it, then if the community approves it, it'll be approved and it'll go to planning. And then I'll take it forth to council and it'll be approved there.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well.
Yeah, we can have this discussion when we get a little bit more information. Well, we have information, but we can have this discussion and then get with you, Councilwoman Lee, and then we can go from there. And then you can advise the members and everything on what we discussed and how to make it beneficial for the community. How it can bring value everywhere.
And I think
Okay.
you all were doing that. I do want to commend your good job on asking and reaching out. And I know the community didn't give you a lot of specifics, and I think that's because you already named a lot of good pieces there. But that piece about knocking them down to, what was it, 22? I think
Yeah.
that that's a good thing. And maybe even looking at making some of those larger, because I am the same. That's going to be very, very small. And so if it's very, very small, you have people, and we kind of talked about this too, who come in there that don't really want that as a home, even though it's a buy-in, to stay a little while and move and maybe not pay as much attention to things. So you may want to look at that too, if that will help you all financially by making some of them larger. And I mean, area larger, not number larger.
Right.
But yeah, to look at that and then come back. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have ideas on all ranges of that. But in order, like he was saying, in order to give you guys exact answers, we'll need to invest a lot more money on the upfront. So, like I said, we have floor plans that we could pass along to see what everyone would have an interest in or see what they feel about those or whatever. And me saying 22, that's just going off of the floor plans. Like some of the floor plans may be all flat and a lot wider. That would be 22 or 30 of them, right? And then some of them can be like taller and they're not flat. Well, they'll be just the 40 something or the density. So in order to give you guys exact answers, we'll need to invest tens of thousands of dollars up front on architectural, engineering, and legal planning side. But we can't make that kind of investment responsibly until we know this project can actually be zoned and supported by the community. Because none of us on here will go and purchase a car before at least taking it on a ride or done our research about it and at least put some time and effort into it. So we don't want to put the cart before the horse. So that's why we're saying we have ideas, we have floor plans, we can talk over those floor plans, but to get the specifics about those floor plans, we can't get that information yet until we know that the zoning has been approved so that we can get the rest, start implementing the money into it to actually build what we all are agreeing to.
Yeah,
Well,
I've got that. But you can put numbers. You can say, this is how many we're going to do.
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. An idea from all the floor plans. Yes, ma'am.
Well,
And I
it
saw
might
Miss
help.
Elizabeth's
Maybe it would
hand,
help
and
if
I saw Miss Patricia's hand as well. Steve, I see their hands, and then I know you wanted to say something too. So I'm going to ask Miss Elizabeth and Miss Patricia.
I just wondered, with fewer units, how would that affect the selling price?
Well, it won't affect the selling price because the selling price is based off of the square footage and the comps in the area. So it would what do you mean? What do you mean exactly?
What you mentioned previously be 275,000 to 350,000
Because
per
that's given
unit.
an estimate off of the floor plans that we just have been visualizing and saying, if we
Okay,
put that over there, then this could possibly be that price. And if we use these floor plans, then it could possibly be this price. But that also depends on, do we do all brick or do we do all hardy board or do we do a mixture of the two? So we keep the aesthetics of the area matching. Does that make sense?
it does. You has presented this in terms of 56 units, so maybe we go 40.
Yeah,
Have
no. So
more-
the reason why we set that number is because of the density, because of the zoning, they have certain densities that they're saying that, okay, if you are in this one, then you have the amount to build all the way up to here. But that doesn't mean we're going to build all the way up to there, because we got to take into consideration like living there and how it functions and stuff like that. So that's why I told you guys earlier, it may be 22, it may be 33. I'm throwing out numbers. It all depends on the floor plans and how they're positioned and fit on there.
And engineering. I
Okay.
mean, I will say that with this being a heavily wooded site, stormwater doesn't move off of it very fast, right? You put all this pavement down and all this roof area down, that stormwater is going to be shooting off the property. So you have to have stormwater devices, detention ponds, fire retention ponds, pavers. You have to have these things that absorb stormwater, or, turn it into a sheet flow, make it move slower, such that it meets the existing site. I mean, you could think that the amount of rainfall that hits all these trees, it's likely not making it to the creek, right? So that stormwater moves very, very slow. We're going to have to engineer some significant ponds to be able to match how the stormwater moves now. And that's my engineering take, but it's just, I think that there is some volume that needs to be spoken to that. That's going to cost a lot of time and effort and funds for me to be able to get to that point. And I think that's what me and Christian Ashley are trying to represent is that it's not feasible to invest that much money into a project that ultimately we don't know would get built until Planning Commission, City Council goes through. And forgive me if I'm reiterating myself too much, but I do just think that stormwater element will have some significant impact to this development once we get into that phase of the project.
Ms. Patricia has been waiting to say something.
Several things. I am just looking at this and seeing, as you were just saying, Connor, that most of it looks impenetrable surface where it can't absorb water. And that's a tragedy, I think. I don't see any green space except at the very front. The second thing is we are asking every developer to be conscious of removing invasive plants and using native plants for landscaping. And I'm not seeing very much possibility even for any landscaping. I may be wrong. And also, we work with a lot of developers, and they have upfront been able to tell us exactly how many units they were going to put on the property. So what we need, I believe, I would be comfortable with if you can just say you're going to do 22 and leave it at that and work with that.
Understood. But for just speaking to this concept, the majority of the landscaping would be the front, the rear, and the sides, right? As of right now, we've placed a 20-foot landscaping buffer, maintaining as much existing vegetation. And we would ultimately have to contract with a landscape architect that would install more traditional trees or endemic vegetation that's natural to the area. But as I mentioned, it would largely be front, side, and rear where you're getting most of your trees. There's landscaping requirements at Metro for foundation plantings, things that go around the buildings as well. That's more shrubs, bushes, flowers, where your trees, your larger vegetation is going to be around the perimeter of the site.
Could we ask, and this is what we've asked other developers, not to plant any invasive plants and to use native plants for the landscaping, for the trees. I know you have to go a certain tree density units, and there's recommended lists from the Metro Tree Advisory Committee, from trees.nashville, nashvilletrees.gov, that give you a recommended list that you won't give credit for example, a silver maple or something like that. I'm really aching, just really wish there was more green space internally. You mentioned all the stormwater that's going to roll off this place, and it will, because trees are the number one infrastructure, mechanism for absorbing water. And
yes, ma'am.
You're taking them all off. So,
well,
No,
there will be.
this doesn't have any trees right here already. We're
Patricia,
not removing any trees. There's no trees right here.
I'm not sure where you are.
I'm just, I can't, I don't have a video. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. But where you're speaking on where trees and stuff are currently, we're keeping a lot of the land the way it is. We just have to, we're in the middle of it. And we're
Okay.
actually adding more green space on the left side of it so that it's not a sore eye view looking at the, I guess, the commercial space that's next door. And then we're giving even more greener space. And if we can get that walk, like you said, to the other side of the subdivision, then that's even better.
And remember, we asked if you would remove the invasive plants, and remember burning bush, the heavenly bamboo and nandina, they're all invasives and they're so commonly used in landscaping. We would request that you don't do that, use those. And hopefully
That
we
would
would
be
get,
fine.
and
That
hopefully,
wouldn't be an issue at all, Ms. Patricia.
and hopefully we would get to see the plant list before it's incorporated into the landscape options.
Okay. That's not a problem.
And Patricia, I just would like to hit the stormwater thing home because that's like near and dear to me.
Okay.
As a civil engineer, there are practices required by Metro, bioretention and pavers being the two largest, that promote infiltration, very similar to a tree root system. These are used in most low impact development policy areas. Nashville, I believe that most of it comes up from New York, or not New York, New Jersey, around Chesapeake Bay, which is a very controlled water, water body.
Yes.
And there, per Nashville, it's the strictest stormwater management manual or policy in Middle Tennessee. They are very, very specific and critical on promoting infiltration, on reducing runoffs. So you are correct on the tree thing. I'm not going to lie to you. You are correct on the tree thing. But there are management practices that are intended to supplement
I understand.
tree drainage features, right?
Where
I
is
just want to speak to you on that
Where's
because
your
that
re-
is something that I hold near and dear.
where will your detention or retention ponds be located? Do you know that yet?
Yeah, it'll certainly be at the rear. I think that we would likely find opportunities to put between buildings so that you create some kind of natural buffer or screening between, the rear of people's units. I'm sure that there's going to be some form of patio or some kind of deck space in the rear.
Where are
And
the
that would be a
pavers
nice
going
feature
to?
for landscape.
And then
One more
where
time.
excuse me, I'm sorry. Where are you seeing the pavers, the permeable pavers going?
Yeah, certainly. It tends to be the case if we utilize pavers to do it in parking areas, just because where you see the most vehicle traffic and loads from vehicles turning and stopping is going to be in the actual central drive aisles, right? So we like to put pavers from a maintenance standpoint in parking spaces, just because there's less turning, there's less, wear and tear on the paver system. But if it were the case that we needed to utilize pavers, it would likely be in parking spaces.
All right, thank you.
I had one more thing.
Please go ahead, Steve.
I'm just speaking for myself. Patricia may know more, but I'm wondering if it may not be helpful for the community to give you guys some feedback on what density we feel like would be acceptable to us. So you don't have all these, then you would know a target. So you wouldn't have to go to all the additional work you spoke of, trying this and that. But if you had a target where the community would be behind you, then your work wouldn't be in vain, and it would increase. Now, I don't know if the community could agree on that, but I imagine we could agree on a range, a general range. What do you think, Patricia?
I think we could agree on a range, although 22 did sound wonderful to me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me too. And that would give
I
you.
also thought that was a pretty good number, but just realize, and a range would be good. I think a range would be good, but just realize that we only have 11 participants here.
Right.
And what is
Right.
that? 3 of those are a part of the group that's putting this together.
Right.
And so they still have a lot more that they needed to look at as well. But if we want to give a number, because it sounded like that 22 was a pretty good number, or a range like 22 to 30 or something like that. I do agree that that would give them something to work towards, and then maybe they could see how that would fit
Right.
in that
Right.
area.
Yeah, I think we could get more community buy-in on that, because I agree with there's not that many people on this meeting. But if we had a community meeting and discussed what was acceptable, to get more numbers of the community to agree to this target.
Certainly. I mean, would another feature in the newsletter for the district be a good means to be able to give y'all some information? You know, maybe if we take into some things into account with the revised concepts, send all that out with more information on the property. You know, is the newsletter a good medium for being able to initiate
That's
that
that's
review?
the emails that they send, and I send it to everybody that's on the database. So sure, you send that information to Rosie, and we would put that, and we can send that out. But I think what we want to also hear from what they think as well.
Mhm. Yep. I'm in
I think
agreement
that's
with
agreeable.
everybody too.
Yeah, any information is appreciated.
Mhm.
Yes, I
Yeah,
apologize
and
that I don't have the
ultimately,
floor plans available for you guys. We were working on them, so thank you for your patience and understanding. We wanted to be able to present some materials and some ideas just to give you a concept and visual on what to look at so that you could have a better understanding. However, we will definitely get that into the for your next emails out on Thursday.
And I think that would be good too, because then there may be some people who weren't on here and look at that, and some may say, well, that might be good in that area, and more people will be on the next call as well.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you. We'd appreciate that. So whatever information, when you get it together in a good form, we'll send that to Ms. Roseanne, and she or either Ms. Melody will send that to everybody in the database, so they'll get that information.
Okay.
Is there anybody on here that has not, because it's a minute past 7 now, haven't had a chance to give their input or say something, that would like to put something in the room before we get off? Okay, I really appreciate, I want to thank you all very much, Ms. Elizabeth, Steve, and Ms. Patricia, for all of the advice that you were giving and your concerns. And I want to thank you all, my developers, because like I said, I really appreciate how you all have been open and trying to move things in the direction that would fit into the community. That is very important. And I think the community members on this call could see that that was something that you were trying to do. So
well,
this
thank
isn't the
you, Ms.
last
Lee.
thing, and we'll try to get things together, because it is not our intention to have you spend a whole lot of money to get very specific things before you know if it's going to be go through or not. It is just our intention to be able to get some
Right.
kind of sight to see, like, all right, this is how it's going to fit, a rough, this is how it's going to fit, this is how many we're going to have, that kind of thing, so that they will know what to expect when the bill goes through. And they don't want us to have that concept, and then the bill goes through and we didn't say a specific number, and now they got 100 different units. So
Understood. And I apologize if I keep on hitting on that. I think it's just one thing that kind of gets lost in some conversations. And you know, excuse me for reiterating. It's just more along the lines of just making sure that everybody's on the same page, that there's a lot of money already invested into this property. And I appreciate everybody's feedback. I think this ultimately, and to commend y'all, community engagement makes us better developers. So the more you speak with us, the more that you share your thoughts, the more we can, like Christian Ashley said, make thoughtful and intentional development a real thing.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your
All
time.
right.
and
Thank
space.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Y'all
good
have a
evening.
good weekend.
I want to thank everyone very much as well, and I hope you all have a very good evening.
Thank you,
All right.
Thank
Antoinette.
you also.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
That was that